I find it interesting that movements like these are being led by Dr. Jordan Peterson, who is, for lack of a better description, a celebrity conservative. In Australia, we've got CPAC, which operates in a similar sphere. It's led by writers and commentators. In both these cases, and for both conferences, conservative politicians have to be convinced to take part. Now, conservative politicians are not the creatures who are leading the movement to restore the West and salvage conservative and libertarian politics. Do you find it odd that Western conservative politicians are so unbelievably lazy and unmotivated when it comes to picking up the flag and leading the conservative spiritual movement? Now, obviously, we're leaving out people like Alex Antic, but I mean, they are the tiny handful of minority. In general, I'm not seeing any incentive in these huge political bodies to save themselves, let alone the Western civilization.
No, I agree with that. And it was interesting to me to see a large number of Liberal Party politicians. I even ran into one Conservative Labor state MP there. I think it's great that they're there because the beauty of ARC is it put on a big global stage issues that people like you and I have been campaigning for probably most of our lives. And we've been marginalised as fringe dwellers. You mentioned, Alex Antic, Matt Canavan was there. Now, these are guys who have been voices in the wilderness in the coalition. They're people who will stand up on marriage and family issues, even, the idea of the dignity of human life. They will stand up on the economic issues of how net zero is destroying our economy, but they're marginalised voices. But suddenly you are in a big conference with 1,500 people with leading thinkers from around the world, including Jordan Peterson. Despite his celebrity status, he's a very smart man. Other experts like Bjorn Lomborg, Stephen Koonin, just completely demolishing the whole net zero agenda, which is destroying our global economy. It was like being on the set of The Outsiders on Sunday morning, except for 3 days in a big conference in London, because those sort of ideas were what was permeating that time. And I think it would have made many of the politicians there quite uncomfortable because they know they're not carrying these ideas. And I guess the success of ARC will be whether this is actually transmitted into major parties like the Liberal Party and whether people start fighting for these ideas in public policy again.
Well, I've spoken to a couple of politicians who've since returned, and honestly, I don't think that they've learned anything. I mean, this was all about denouncing the World Economic Forum, but they're not going to denounce the World Economic Forum, and I don't think many of them have learned the lessons from COVID about how Liberal politicians leaned into what would normally be left-wing tyranny and abuses of human rights. Didn't really see much acknowledgement of that. And I honestly don't think, despite ARC focusing so heavily on the future of energy, I don't think any of those politicians, apart from our obvious exceptions, are going to stand there and say, we were wrong to put forward the idiocy of global boiling and all the rest of it and net zero, and we're now going to go to nuclear. They're just going to try and quietly sidestep into nuclear without damaging their net zero portfolios. I mean, I'm sure that's the line that they are going to run, which means that they're not learning from these experiences. And that worries me personally, because if the politicians don't learn, it doesn't matter how great the commentators are, they're the ones who hold the reins of power.